Hey, welcome back to the WTF Fake It Till You Make It show. So we're on episode 7, and I thought we'd stay in the realm of fantasy for a while since, it is by far my favorite, and unfortunately for you, I'm the one choosing the syllabus here. So anyway, what is adult fantasy? I know it sounds really sketchy. Actually, it's just fantasy novels that might be a bit too gruesome or contain too many intimate scenes for the young'uns. So yeah, it's not 50 Shades of Grey, unless one of the characters turned into a dragon at some point or something. Actually, let's digress for a second and talk about 50 Shades of Grey. The trilogy, so that's a set of 3 books, is an erotic series based on a mousy protagonist named Anastasia Steele, what a name, and her lover Christian Grey, hence the title 50 Shades of Grey. Well, since its publication, it has constantly been named one of the worst series of books ever written. Yeah, I'll tell you frankly, I tried to read it. I really did. I think I managed maybe a chapter or 2, and then I had to put it down. The writing was so bad, honestly, so bad. So why was it so popular? Well, I researched a bit further because I was a bit stunned, to be honest, by reading it. And actually, it was originally written as fan fiction for Mormon author Stephanie Meyer's fantasy series Twilight, which is also, incidentally, consistently named one of the worst series ever written. I mean it. There are like lists on proper websites that constantly name them and shame them. Anyway, E.L. James, so that's the author of 50 Shades of Grey, wanted to flesh out all the intimate scenes that weren't on screen or, I guess, on page in Twilight, and thus 50 Shades of Grey was born. Both these series are littered with poor grammar, cringeworthy descriptions, and I mean like really awful. I feel it in my bone marrow. Shallow characters, questionable morals, ethics, messages, gaping holes and fallacies in the plot. So how on earth did these really badly written novels then sell tens of millions of copies and secure major film deals? Well, I have a theory. It revolves around the protagonists. So both series have brown-haired protagonists of average height, average intelligence, average physique. You get the idea. They're completely unremarkable. Then, through no effort of their own, they get chosen with a capital C. Okay, so let's look at Twilight, for example. It centers on Bella Swan, a regular high school girl with no standout traits or talents whatsoever. And then, a literally sparkly vampire, and I mean literally, like his skin sparkles like diamonds apparently. Anyway, a sparkly vampire falls in love with her at first smell. Yeah, you heard that right. The smell of her blood is intoxicating to him. So without Bella having to do anything at all, she's a passive observer almost in her own story. She's elevated to the position of center of the universe for somebody who is not average, and therefore she becomes special by association. Now my point is that it's quite easy to see then how this book is so alluring for so many. In particular, the main audience for these books are older women. It feeds on their insecurities, perhaps about not feeling extraordinary, and dangles the promise of adventure without having to actively seek it out. The whole point of these characters being so unremarkable is that no matter who is reading it, they can easily slot themselves into the position of protagonist because, it's like one size fits all, right? That's what these characters are. And yeah, suddenly they're the protagonist of the story where things just happen to them, right? You can just lie back and enjoy your life and things will happen. Anyway, rant over. One of those series is adult, that's 50 Shades of Grey, just adult, and then the other is just fantasy. But let's get down to the business of discussing actual adult fantasy. So you'll all be familiar with A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. If it doesn't ring any bells yet, the first book in the series is called A Game of Thrones. It's essentially about the fight between clans or families to gain control of the Iron Throne, and therefore rule the 7 kingdoms of Westeros, and beyond, probably. You've probably quoted or at least heard some iconic lines like, "Winter is coming," and "You know nothing, Jon Snow." Well, why is everyone crazy about this series? Well, one major factor is that the author is ruthless. after getting you to back these amazing multi-dimensional characters as they navigate really complex political situations, he will, without warning, kill them off. He's ruthless. Usually in fantasy series, because it is, well, fantasy, authors are fairly kind and keep most of your favorites alive. And the ones that die, they usually go out with a bang, like for some cause or in some great and honorable way. Yeah, that's not the case with Mr. Martin. So come prepared with either tissues and ice cream or an ice-cold attitude, because that is the only way you will survive. You just can't trust anyone. Not the characters and definitely not the author. But his level of detail, world building, and character development is just stunning. If you've watched the HBO TV series, you'll understand what a master of storytelling he is. Well, okay, barring the last few seasons, which were not written by him, so we just have to wipe them from our memories and pretend they never happened. It's so sad because I can never recommend the TV series to anyone anymore, just because of how badly they botched the ending. The biggest downside to the series, then, is the fact that the books remain unfinished, right? That's why the TV series was taken over by somebody else. It freaks me out a little bit, I'll be honest, because the author is old and he writes really slowly. I know that sounds awful, but we've seen what happens when other people try to finish off his work. Basically, I just hope that he magically whips out the last few books so I can finally be at peace. And also, maybe then they can remake the last few seasons of the TV series to make it, perfect again. Also, if you're wondering, yes, my favorite character is Arya. I know, so original. I don't know what it is with me and unfinished series, but seriously, some of the best adult fantasy books out there are kind of torturous because I've been waiting forever to know what happens next. The Gentleman Bastard series by Scott Lynch is one of my absolute favorites. The language is kind of viscerally shocking, so be prepared for that. Some of the rudest language I've ever read, but it's hilarious. It's a series about a band of highly sophisticated con artists, led by protagonist Locke Lamora, hence The Lies of Locke Lamora being the first book. It's fast-paced, it's hilarious, but the author is just as ruthless as George R.R. Martin, so watch out. People do die, and suddenly. Anyway, the characters experience success and also missed opportunities in equal measure, so I find that also very realistic and hilarious. For example, one of my favorite parts is this band, right? They hear of a legendary vault in a really wealthy, progressive nation that is apparently impossible to break into. It's also full of insane amounts of money, right? Tempting. So of course, these thieves, they take it as a personal challenge and manage to break in. However, once they are in the vault, they realize they've been tricked because there are no gold coins, just piles and piles of paper. So they leave with nothing. Like they actually leave empty-handed. Oh my gosh, I was screaming because obviously you and I know that that paper was in fact paper money, right? Obviously they'd never seen paper money in their own kingdom before. And it was probably worth way more than even the coins that Locke imagined he'd find. So, oh my gosh, I was screaming when they left. But yeah, completely hilarious. It's raucous, it's irreverent. If you don't mind the pain of waiting indefinitely for sequels, it's worth a gander. Another one of my favorite series, unfortunately also incomplete, I know, what is it? Is The King Killer Chronicle by Patrick Rothfuss. It centers on the epic adventures of Kvothe. Yeah, it's spelled Kvothe, and it took me forever to figure out how to say that. I actually had to Google it, no joke. But yeah, Kvothe is a ridiculously talented magician, swordsman, musician, general all-rounder, the person that you hated in high school, but 10x. Anyway, the author is also ridiculously clever. Reading the series is a bit like going on a treasure hunt. He leaves a ton of really sophisticated, well-written riddles throughout the books, and the pleasure of the aha moments when things start to click together is really, really satisfying. Like, it's amazing. Everything just makes sense, slowly but surely. Also, the vast range of cultures, themes, and personalities that he's cultivated is completely awesome. The protagonist, I'll be frank, is a little annoying in that he's completely full of himself. Really, he's just so obsessed with himself. But I kind of like that because it's realistic, seeing as, he's narrating the story through his own perspective, and he's narrating to a chronicler who has been asked to focus on the best parts of his story. So yeah, of course he's going to look self-obsessed. Yeah, anyway, 2 books are out, 1 to go. I'm still waiting. But it's been nearly 10 years since I read the second book, and I still frequently check on the release date of the third book. So you can imagine how addictive this series is. Must be good, right? Okay, I feel like I've nattered on about amazing series with no endings in sight, maybe because I want you to feel as tortured as I do. But as a parting gift, one of my absolute favorite fantasy books has to be Circe. So it was written fairly recently by a Brown University alum, I know, represent, called Madeline Miller. She actually studied the same thing as I did, classics. But she retells the story of the witch Circe from Greek mythology with such depth and character that you'll forget all about Medusa and Athena and Zeus and all those other folks. It's the kind of book that really makes your heart sing. Honestly, reading it feels like, I don't know, like drinking hot chocolate on a rainy day. It's so warming. Her language is just poetic and on point, and her storytelling is flawless. Really one of the best endings I've read in a while. Everything just comes together at the end like magic. It's just the one book, too, but the story will linger in your mind forever. She gives shape, voice, and heart to a traditionally villainized character, and she does it so smoothly that you'll stop believing anything else you've ever learned about Circe at school. If there's one book I recommend to you this year, actually, it's probably Circe. And yeah, it is the one book, so you don't have to worry about A, the time commitment of a series, or B, the unfinishedness that seems to hang around most series I recommend. Anyway, now that I've talked your ear off, I'll sign off for the week. But stay tuned for next week's episode where we'll dive deep into history. We'll take a look at some of the world's original epics which have inspired literature for thousands of years. No, literally thousands. But yeah, anyway, thanks for listening. See you soon.